Here's a fact that sounds made up. The average medieval peasant ate close to 2 pounds of bread a day, drank weak ale by the gallon, and got as much as 70% of their calories from grain alone. One bowl, one drink, almost no meat. Repeated every single day of their lives. It sounds like a recipe for slow starvation. It wasn't. That plain, monotonous diet was, by some measures, more nourishing than what a lot of people eat today. And how that's possible is one of the strangest stories in the history of food. Because you've probably got a picture in your head already. A filthy peasant, hunched over a wooden bowl of gray slop, gnawing a crust of stale bread, one bad turnip away from death. Miserable, starving, barely hanging on. It's the version you've seen in 100 films. And like most tidy pictures of the past, it's part true, part nonsense, and it hides something far more interesting. So let's actually look in the bowl. For most peasants, on most days, the meal was pottage. Say it out loud once because it fed Europe for 1,000 years. Pottage was a thick stew of whatever grew close to the ground. Oats, or barley for body, peas and beans, onions, leeks, cabbage, whatever the garden gave up that week. It all simmered in a single pot over the fire. And here's the part people love. In many homes, that pot was rarely emptied. You ate from it, then topped it up with the next handful of grain and greens, and did it again tomorrow. A slow cooker that never quite got switched off. It's easy to romanticize that never-ending pot, and some historians think we do exactly that. But the daily one-pot meal itself is not in doubt. Then there was bread. Not the soft white loaf you're picturing. Peasant bread was dark, dense, and heavy, made from rye, from barley, or from a mix of grains called maslin. The good wheat, the fine white flour, almost always went to market to be sold, or onto the tables of people who could afford it. A peasant tore off a hunk of coarse bread, dunked it in the pottage to soften it, and that was breakfast. And lunch. And more or less dinner. And here's a small detail that tells you how little went to waste. Bread wasn't only the meal, it was often the plate. A thick, stale slab of it, called a trencher, could be used to hold the rest of your food. It soaked up every drop of juice and grease while you ate. And when the meal was done, you either ate the gravy-soaked plate itself, or, if you had a little to spare, it went to the dogs or to someone poorer than you. Nothing was thrown away that a hungry person could still use. And to drink? If you saw our beer video, you already know. Weak, cloudy small ale, brewed at home, safer than the water, and packed with calories. By some accounts, a hard laborer got through several pints a day, and older claims stretch that to a full gallon. Whatever the exact number, the point holds. The drink was food, too. So here's the question that should be bothering you. Where's the meat? For a modern eater, the meal is built around it. For a medieval peasant, meat was the exception, not the rule. Part of that was simple economics. An animal was worth far more alive. A pig gave you piglets, a cow gave you milk, a hen gave you eggs. And you did not kill your breeding stock for one good dinner unless you truly had to. And part of it came from the church. For roughly a third of the year, eating meat was banned outright. Every Friday, often Wednesdays, and Saturdays too. And then the long grind of Lent, 40 days with no meat, and for much of the Middle Ages, no eggs and no dairy either. In some places, you could actually pay a small fee for a note granting permission to eat butter during the fast. Parts of one German cathedral were funded by exactly those butter payments. But for a poor peasant, none of that changed much. When you can barely afford meat anyway, a holy day without it is just another Tuesday. So where did the protein come from? 2 places. Those peas and beans in the pottage, cheap, storable, and quietly doing the job that meat does today. And what people at the time called white meats, meaning cheese, butter, and eggs. A wedge of hard cheese and a couple of eggs from the family hens could carry a working body a very long way. Now here's where it gets genuinely surprising, and it's the reason we're making this video. Add all of it up, whole, unrefined grain, beans and peas, for protein and fiber, onions, cabbage, and leeks. A little cheese, the odd egg, almost no sugar, and almost no red meat. Read that list back to a doctor today, and they will nod along. It is more or less the diet that health experts now spend a fortune trying to talk people into. The medieval peasant was accidentally eating whole grain, high fiber, and mostly plant-based, 500 years before a single wellness influencer was born. And we are not just guessing at this. On some English manors, the Lord fed his workers through the harvest and wrote down every last expense. At one manor in Norfolk called Sedgeford, those accounts survive across years. Bread, pottage, herring, ale, a little cheese and meat when the work was hardest. Real records, real meals, written down by the people who were actually there. But before we get carried away, hold on a second. It is tempting to call this the perfect diet and declare that peasants ate better than we do, and some historians would push back on that hard. This was not a lifestyle choice. It was monotony born of having no other option. It was often low in fat, frequently low in total calories, and for months of the year, it was simply not enough. Which brings us to the grim part, because this entire diet balanced on a knife edge. It depended on the harvest, and the harvest did not always come. Every single year there was a stretch of early spring the English later called the Hungry Gap. Last autumn's grain running out, this year's crop not yet in the ground, the stored vegetables sprouting and softening in the cellar. People simply ate less and waited and hoped, and sometimes the hope ran out. Between 1315 and 1317, it rained across northern Europe almost without stopping. Crops rotted where they stood. Grain yields were cut by a third, and in places by half. Cattle and sheep died in staggering numbers. This was the Great Famine, and in some towns it killed as much as a tenth to a quarter of everyone living there. A diet built almost entirely on grain has one catastrophic flaw. When the grain fails, there is nothing underneath it to catch you. So here's the full picture. The peasant diet wasn't grim gray slop, and it wasn't a wellness fantasy either. It was plain. It was repetitive. It was, in a good year, genuinely nourishing, and in a bad year, a death sentence. It was clever without anyone ever designing it, healthy almost by accident, and fragile in a way we can barely picture from here. And that's the part worth sitting with. Think about what that peasant would make of your kitchen, not the fanciest thing in it, just the ordinary fact of it. A cupboard holding 5 different grains, a fridge you open when you are not even hungry, just to see what's in there. Meat on a Tuesday for no particular reason, fresh fruit in the middle of winter, the sheer freedom to be bored of your own food. For that peasant, variety wasn't a pleasure. It was a thing that basically did not exist. The same bowl, the same bread, the same drink, every day, and quiet gratitude that there was anything in the bowl at all. So the next time you stand in front of an open fridge, full of options, and think there's nothing to eat, remember the bowl. For almost everyone who ever lived, that bowl was the whole story. And you get to be bored by yours. Oh, and one more thing. Next to that bowl of pottage sat a mug of weak ale, and there's a reason a peasant reached for beer over the water in the well. It's the story that started this whole channel, so once you're done here, go watch how beer, not water, kept 1,000 years of Europe alive. It's the perfect one to see next.